All right, so we're going to talk about what's new in QuickBooks 2016, and that's something really important to kind of be aware of is that this week, actually on Tuesday, 2 days ago, QuickBooks Accountant 2016 came out, and this is what we call Release One. However, QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Enterprise have not officially released. So it is possible that more features will be released when Pro, Premier, and Enterprise come out, especially on the Enterprise side, because you will see in the presentation later on how we really don't have that many new things to show on the Enterprise part because I don't think Intuit has yet released the Enterprise new features. However, based on the QuickBooks Accountant 2016 edition that came out a couple of days ago, and if you're a QuickBooks Pro advisor, you should be able to have access to it. If you're not a QuickBooks Pro advisor, then you just don't have access to it yet. So let's talk about first what's going to be available in all editions. So on Pro, Premier, Account, and Enterprise, we're going to have 6 new features. We're going to have the bill tracker. I would say that's the largest of the features. It's actually an entire module that we're going to cover. We're going to have a new date filter called this fiscal year to last month, which is absolutely awesome, and I'll kind of cover why that's awesome. We have a new option to clear the send to queue for forms. So if you have a lot of invoices that you marked as to be emailed, and you want to unmark them all, there's a great feature for that. We have sorry, we have a new feature that allows you to use custom fields to filter inventory reports, which is actually pretty neat because we can actually have different inventory items with custom fields, and we can use those attributes to separate, how much of this type of inventory I have and how much of that type of inventory I have. Then there's also support for continuous feed printers. So if you have a label printer that has a roll in it, and you want to print labels with that, now you can do it with QuickBooks 2016. So I thought that was actually really, it's a minor feature, but it's really interesting. And then we have an enhance, rebuild, and verify. Basically, it would now give you feedback after you rebuild and verify. It'll give you feedback of what items were fixed and what items were you were not able to fix in the process. So let me jump over to QuickBooks Desktop here now. Whoops, that wasn't it. Let me go to QuickBooks Desktop here now. Uh, there we go. Okay, you should be able to see my QuickBooks Desktop screen. Michelle, if you're still on, can you just tell me if the QuickBooks Desktop screen is still showing?
Yes, Hector, I can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Okay, so in the one I have open here is QuickBooks Enterprise Accountant 2016. However, we're going to cover what's new on all versions. So what I'm about to show you, you should expect to see in Pro, Premier, Accountant, Enterprise in all editions. So the first big feature is the Bill Tracker. It's here under Vendors, and it's called Bill Tracker. And before I open that up, to give you some context, uh, I'm not sure if it was 2014 or 2015. I think it was 2014. They introduced the income tracker, and this is not a new feature for 2016. This has been on for at least a year or two, and this basically allow you to have one dashboard that showed me invoices, sales orders, estimates. So the bill tracker is kind of like the cousin or the sister of this one, which looks exactly the same. However, it's all having to do with vendors. So for example, if I wanted to see all the open bills, I could just click on that orange bar there that says unpaid. And by clicking on that, it filters to all the open bills. And I can hear where it says group by on the right. I can click on group by vendor, and I can actually have all my bills grouped and organized by vendor. Now, why would I want them this way? Well, maybe I want to select these 2 bills here from Daigle, and then I want to go to patent here and select these 2 bills, and I want to go to Timberloft and select these 2 bills, right? So it's kind of a real quick way for you to organize all the bills that you're looking at. And then here at the bottom, let me just resize it so you can see it. So here at the bottom where it says batch actions, I can click on pay bills, and QuickBooks will automatically only check those bills and mark them ready for you to pay in the pay bill screen. So it's sort of a way of quickly batching what bills you're going to pay. So that's one of the real neat features about the bill tracker. The other real neat feature about it is being able to close. So this is huge, by the way, for a lot of my clients. This is huge. Being able to close open POs. So, for example, let's say you're at a client's QuickBooks file and they have hundreds of purchase orders old from 2 years ago, from 5 years ago, whatever. We have tons of purchase orders that are still sitting there open. So if I pull a report, let me just go back to the traditional way of looking at open purchase orders in this case. It would be under purchases and open purchase orders. This is the traditional way of managing purchase orders per se. Okay, so in this report, in this specific report, if this report happens to be huge, 100 pages, right? Because they have almost every open PO from the past. What you can do is you can select all the ones. I can sort these by date or whatever, and I can select which are the ones that I want to close, and I can go to batch action and go to close purchase orders. And by doing that, I completely get rid of them from my open PO system. And if I go back to my report, the report of open purchase orders, it goes away. So I think other than the pizzazz of the bill tracker and just the neat way of organizing your bills and your accounts payable, I think that that specific function is really, really big because there was no other way in the past to close a whole bunch of open purchase orders. Now on the income tracker, let me just go back into customers here. On the income tracker, let me go back to income tracker. If you were to try to do the same thing for sales orders, and I'll click on select all, yeah, there's no way to close the sales orders, right? Or within estimates, there's no way to make all these estimates. Actually, with estimates, yes, you can make estimates inactive in batch, but you cannot close out sales orders in batch. So I thought that was kind of interesting, right? So you can inactivate estimates in batch through this feature here, and you can close POs in batch, but you cannot close sales orders in batch. So that's something good to know. Okay, so that's Bill Tracker, and let's go for the next feature, which I really really like, which is a new date filter. So I'm gonna go to Reports, Company Financial, Profit and Loss, and the default date filter here on the top left for a profit and loss is this month to date. Okay, so everybody knows this. Every time you open a PO, I mean a profit and loss, that's exactly what comes out. Now, with this new filter, it's right here. It's called this fiscal year to last month. Now, a lot of people have given me feedback that, well, I don't understand what the value of this is, and I'll tell you, the value is actually really really big because, as far as I know, most people don't show financial statements until the banks have been reconciled. So if I'm in the middle of the month, like right now is September 10th, and I pull a profit and loss, I really don't care about doing this fiscal year to date because the transactions between, let's say, September 1st and September 10th, in this case, this is a sample file, so we're looking at December 1st to December 15th. These transactions may not be complete, they may not be verified, they may not be reconciled. So what most people do is they pull this fiscal year to date, and then they go backwards and they manually select last month, and that's usually what gets the report that gets displayed. So by having it as a filter here, it saves you obviously a couple of seconds. But where this is true valuable is not just on having it as a quick filter here, is the fact that I can use this on memorized reports, and I can do this on report batching too. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let me go ahead and memorize. I'm going to select this year to last month, and I'm going to click on memorize, and we'll call it here this fiscal year last month, whatever. I'll just make up a, a code for that, and let me save this, and then I'm going to pull up a balance sheet as well, and then I will do this fiscal year to last month, and I'll memorize that as well, and I'll just give it a code here. Okay, and I'll pull up a statement of cash flows. Let's say those are the type of reports that we pull, right? So let's do a statement of cash flow, do the same filter, and memorize. Oops, so I'll call it cash flow. Okay, and then when I go into my memorized report list, I'm going to go ahead and group all these. Let me create a new group here. I'll create a new group and I'll call it financial statements this fiscal year to last month. Okay, and I'll put all those guys under that group, and I'll be able to do interesting things with that group. So I'll show you here real quick. And this is the true value of it. I don't think so much is the filter itself, because we did have a workaround, which is basically select this fiscal year to date and then go backwards a couple of days, and that really wasn't such a big deal, right? You could just do that. But by having them memorized and as a group, now I can process multiple reports like this and select my group, and then see it's going to be consistent. So no matter what month I'm in, from this screen, I will always make sure that I'm never going to send financial statements that contain current month transactions sorry, current month transactions that are not going to be reconciled or not going to be verified. So by having them memorized in a group like this, I can always display them in batch, or print them in batch, or email them in batch. And that email in batch feature that was added, I think, in 2015 or 2014. So it's not new to 2016, but this is how powerful this filter can be when it's combined with these other features. Okay, so that is this fiscal year to last month feature. Let me just check here. Okay, the next one I'm going to show you is clear send queue in forms marked to be sent. Okay, so let's say, for example, I have an invoice here, and I'm just going to pull up an invoice and I have it marked to be emailed later. And we're talking about that little check mark there that says marked to be emailed later. And I'll go ahead and save this, and I'll go back to another one, and I'll just mark a few of them, right? And then I'll save this. I'll show you what I mean. And then I'll click on that and I save that. Okay, so when I have a whole bunch of invoices marked to be sent later, when I go to File and I go to Send Forms, it basically, all the ones that are pending are going to show there, and I can actually email all these in batch, right? So if, for example, you wait till the end of day to email all the open invoices or something like that. But what's new that they added was the ability to remove them. So now what I can do is I can click on remove, 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 and I can do them in a real fast way, where traditionally I had to go invoice by invoice and or mark them. So being able to remove the invoices that are sent to be that are sent to that are queued to be sent is actually a really big feature. Now the other feature that they talked about, this is not out yet, but when I go to print forms and I go to print invoices, and then I'm gonna have to do the same thing. I'm gonna mark one of these here, print later, and I click on save, and then I'll select another one here, and we'll print later, and I'll click on save and close just to show you. So another feature that they've talked about, this is not official yet. This is not, I don't have any inside information or anything like that, but the other feature they talked about is adding that same little button, the remove button, in the invoices to be print or checks to be printed screen. But we would have to wait for future releases and hope that the discussion about that would actually come through. So unfortunately, I can't really tell you that this is guaranteed that this feature will come on, but they have talked about it. I heard a couple people discuss that the remove checkbox for the send screen and the remove checkbox for the print screen were supposed to release together, but in R3, on release 3, this is not out yet. Okay, so the other feature we'll talk about is the using custom fields as filters on inventory reports. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let me go into my item list here real quick, and I'm gonna go ahead and enable in my item list a custom field. So I'm gonna go to customize columns, and then I'm gonna look for a custom field that would make sense. Let's go this one, material. So I'm gonna move this and put it next to the name, just to kind of so it makes sense. Okay, so next to my inventory items, let's say some of them I have some text under that material custom field. So I'm going to go here into brass hinges. I'm going to go into custom fields, and then I'm going to call this brass. Okay. Then I'm going to go into another inventory item. Let's go to let's see that one, cabinet pools, and we're going to call this one material wood. Okay, and this is useful to create sort of categories, right, for all your inventory items. And let's go here, materials, and we'll call this wood as well. Okay, so you kind of get the point, right? So we're using custom fields here. Door frame, we'll call this custom fields. We'll call this metal. Okay, so when I have specific uh, custom fields like materials, I can now use those filters on reports. So, for example, if I was to pull an inventory evaluation report right now, it tells me that my entire asset value is 32,000. However, if I wanted to know how much of my inventory it's wood, in this case, that's the material that we use. But some people could use different things. You could use um, you can use the brand name, you can use the type of product, you can use, whether it's non-durable or durable or whatever. So bottom line is we can finally use custom fields to have reports that we can filter by item type per se, or inventory item type, which is not available before. So I'm going to go here into material. There it is, and I'm going to put wood, and you're going to see what happens when I hit OK. What happens now I see my inventory evaluation report based on the material wood. Or if I go to customize report and go to filters and I change that from wood to brass or whatever, and I hit OK, and then I get an inventory evaluation report just for brass. So this gives you an idea of how really useful this could be. This is obviously just a random example here, but when you think about a major feature that has been requested for many years, which is having inventory item categories, so your clients can group inventory based on a particular attribute. You can do it with custom fields and report it now. Okay, so another interesting way of using this feature and is by going into let's go make an inventory adjustment. So I'm going to go to vendors, inventory activities, and click on adjust quantity value on hand. And when I go to find select items, let's say I have a lot of items there, right? But this is obviously not a good example because there's only like 10. But what I can do is I can click here where it says custom fields, and then I can put here wood and then hit search, and the item will only show me my wood items. And I go to add and select, and now I'll be able to just adjust my wood item. So where this could be useful is if you have a custom field for the rack number that's on the warehouse, or the size, or the material, or the brand, and you want to just count those as a group. This could be a really useful feature. Okay, so that's custom fields as a filter. Now, we saw that particular feature was only supposed to be available in QuickBooks Enterprise, but we saw it on QuickBooks Accountant. So at the very least, I'm assuming that this is going to be in Premier and Accountant. Not 100% sure if it will be in Pro. Okay, so I can guarantee you this will be in Pro. We don't know yet, of course, but I think that because it's an accountant, it's probably going to be on Premier as well. And obviously Enterprise. Okay, let's talk about the label printer support. Michelle, are there any questions that you know of?
Yes, yes. One of the questions about the custom fields, does that filter only work for inventory reports, or can it be used for any type of custom field?
So
Does it work on other inventory reports?
so so the answer is those custom fields have always worked on everything else, but everything except inventory. So the new feature is not the fact that I could use custom fields in a report. The new feature is that they actually added the ability to do that in inventory reports. So before you couldn't do that for inventory reports.
And then somebody says, is the inventory adjustment still single user? Hi, Peter. The inventory adjustment, is that still single user? I don't think that changed, did it?
Yeah, that hasn't changed. So that has not changed at all. Somebody else is asking, can I have a report that uses multiple filters? Like, can I see wood and brass or wood and metal? And the answer is no. You can only use one. So let's go back to finishing the other two items that I had here pending, which is label printer support and enhance, rebuild, and verify. So let me talk about label printer support. Now, I don't own a label printer and I haven't tested it yet, so I'm not the absolute expert at it, or I can speak about how the the great reasons why this is so useful. But basically, let's say if I'm going to print some labels, I'm going to go to print forms and go to labels, and I'm going to print, let's say, information about my customers or whatever it is, right? So I'm going to print labels for all my customers, and I click OK, and then now I can have printer type. See, instead of being, a page oriented single sheet or a label printer, which is a single label, I can now do a continuous. They call it perforated edge, but basically means that there's going to be a roll, and if I click on the continuous one, I see all the different filters. So this could be, again, a roll. The roll itself will have different sizes. And I can actually pick any of these and I can print them in a continuous, a continuous feed printer. Again, I haven't tested it, so I am not 100% sure. I haven't seen it work, but that's exactly what it is in a nutshell. If I click on preview, you can actually see what this looks like, right? So depending on the size of the label that you have, especially if you have multiple ones, if you look at all the different sizes, depending on the size of the label you have, the information will look a certain way or a different way. All right. So in this particular case, you get two labels per you get two labels at a time on this particular role. So I can't speak about exactly first experience because I don't own a continuous feed label printer. But that's interesting feature, and when I test it, I would love to talk about it later on. And the last thing is enhance, rebuild, and verify. So I'm gonna hit cancel here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and click on File. I click on Utilities, and I'm gonna click on Rebuild Data, and that may take a minute or two. So while it does that, I'm gonna check to see if there's any questions. So go ahead and make my backup there before the rebuild is made, and I'm going to check to see if there's any other questions while the rebuild is happening. Somebody's asking, what's new for Mac? Will you cover that? So if I do have time, I will cover what's new for Mac. Okay, I'm actually running on a Mac now, so I can do that. Somebody else is asking, is this compatible with the Dymo label writer? I don't know. I really don't know. I have no clue. I don't use continuous feed. Okay, let me go to view issues here, and this is the new feature. The new feature is before when you did a rebuild and verify, it actually just fixed the errors for you, but never told you what the error was. Now, if you click here where it says errors, you can hit the drop down, and a lot of this stuff is techie, right? There's a person by the name of William Murphy. He works with Woodard in Insightful Accountant magazine, and he talks a lot about the win log. And basically, what they did that was different was that now any errors that are fixed with the verify feature are shown here on this screen instead of going to the win log. Now, for the most part, you really don't care about what was fixed. What you care about is what wasn't fixed. Like if a customer is corrupted or a vendor is corrupted or a specific transaction is corrupted, it's not showing here because there's no errors with this file, but you will have another one that says errors we couldn't fix, which would be the list of transactions that are corrupted and they're causing further corruption in your QuickBooks. And for the most part, if you do find during the rebuild results or the verified results that there's corrupted items, all you have to do is delete them and recreate them, and you will get rid of that corruption. So having it here instead of having it in some obscure way, because traditionally you would have to go to, I believe it was F1 and then F3. Think it's something like that is the combination. I can't do it because here I'm on a Mac here, but and then it takes you to the win log. But here, whereas when you press, in this case, when you press Control 1 or F2, right here on the bottom right, it says Review, Last, Verify, and Build, and you can click on that, and it takes you back to the screen. So just because you saw it and you closed it doesn't mean you can get back to it and see it. So you can always go back and see that. So I thought that was actually pretty good. Okay, so let's go back into, okay, so that's features that are going to be available in Pro, Premier, Accountant, and Enterprise. Let's talk about the big one now. This is, whoops, the big one here is what's new on, actually, before I do that, let me do this one real quick. This one is one that was added uh, only only for clients that work with sales orders and they go from sales order to purchase order. That because sales orders are not available in Pro, this is only going to be available in Premier, Accountant, and Enterprise. Again, this feature was only supposed to be available for Enterprise, but we saw it available in Accountant. So I can only make the assumption that this is going to be in Premier as well. So let me tell you what this is. So I'm going to go into a sales order screen. And again, this is for clients that create a sales order and want to create a purchase order directly from the sales order, but want their vendors to drop ship the product straight to their client. Okay, so when I have the sales order here set up, I'm going to click on Create Purchase Order, and then right here it says Drop Ship to Customer. So that's new. That's new for 2016. So when I click on Drop Ship to Customer and hit OK, basically the purchase order gets created, nothing new, but automatically the customer gets chosen in the dropship screen, and automatically, naturally, the ship to address naturally shows up in the purchase order. So that's the new feature, is if you are creating a sales order and then creating a purchase order from that sales order, and that purchase order needs to be shipped directly to the client, clicking on that box saves you having to choose the customer here and choosing the shipping address here. Okay, so that's the important piece to talk about in terms of what that